Perfect.
Good stuff. So, yeah, Mark Rothwell. I'm the talent manager for a couple of the business groups at Unilever. Been in recruitment and talent for about 13 years now. And within Unilever, we really take a holistic approach to talent. So it's a real mix of talent acquisition, but then also the internal management as well. From Bolton originally, so nice and local. And yeah, great to see everyone.
Hi, I'm Jo Riley. I'm the resourcing manager at Well Pharmacy. My background is mix of in-house, agency and RPO. More years experience in recruitment than I'd like to admit, so I've got a fair amount there. Also, I'm from Bolton as well, so fairly local to this area.
Hi, I'm Katie Fox, so Senior Recruitment Manager at Brunning and Price Pubs. And I've been in recruitment for 17 years now, originally agency and then moved in-house. So just to give you a little bit of a flavour, Brunning and Price, in terms of our talent, over the last 4.5 years, we've done a massive transformation. So really our focus now is around digital attraction. So hopefully can answer any questions about that.
Hi everyone, I'm Tania Basile. I'm currently Head of Assessment and Selection at the BBC. Like Mark, this is year 13 in recruitment, hopefully not an unlucky one. I started off in agency, like many of us. Recruitment was an accidental career for me. I've worked doing engineering recruitment, I've worked in rail and now in media. So one of those true skipping industries people as well. Thanks to have you here.
Excellent. I'm sure it resonates with everyone starting an agency, possibly moving to RPO and then ending up in-house. It seems to be the talent trajectory. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for those introductions there. I think the theme of this panel really is around key talent trends for 2023. So these are things that are going on in the market, what's happening, what's not working. So what I'm going to ask you first and foremost, which normally gets people talking, what are some of your biggest challenges that you're currently facing in the talent market right now?
So obviously I'm hospitality. I guess it's been a bit of a perfect storm, like lots of sectors, but I guess starting with Brexit, I know on the main stage before, Robin was talking about lots of the European workers moving back home. So a lot of the hospitality sector was traditionally filled roles by a lot of the European workers. So there's a smaller pool there. Then moving to COVID, lots of people left the hospitality sector and didn't return because of different pay and conditions and working patterns. And then finally for us, it's really about that talent skills shortage. So not only have lots and lots of people left the industry, there are lots less young people leaving school and coming to train in both front of house and back of house chefing roles.
Is that what you're seeing across the market for all of you? Obviously BBC, you've got a big brand. You got no issues with talent? No?
We've got so many issues with talent. We could be here until this time next week. I think that's an interesting point you make there about that BBC brand. And of course, most people know who the BBC are. But I think for so long we've relied on that 3 letters as our brand. And actually that doesn't cut it anymore, and it hasn't cut it for a very long time. And I think a lot of brands, can probably say the same, especially now in a world where, if you think about our audience is our workforce essentially as well. And actually our audience is changing, and younger people now don't necessarily turn to the BBC or don't look at the BBC as part of their day-to-day life. So that is a huge challenge for us as a business, and it applies in exactly the same way in terms of the talent we're trying to attract. We have realised, probably later than we should have, we have got to go much further, and we've got to do a lot more in order to show talent actually who we are inside. So if any of you have been on the BBC Careers website in the last week and a half, it's just completely changed for that reason entirely. So brand is a massive challenge for us, and you might not expect it to be.
Yeah, I'd add to that because we've not necessarily got a well-known brand, and that's been a really big challenge for us. So a lot of what you were sharing then around COVID, we work within the healthcare industry, and pharmacists in particular, you've all seen, you've seen it in the press. So we've seen individuals opt out of being within that industry, change completely across to the NHS as well. So brand for us, not being well known, was an essential part for us. So we've rebranded, redone our EVP to really get our name known and why people would want to come and work for us. But it's been a big challenge, and it's been a journey as well.
Yeah, and look, I think there's a lot that's been mentioned here about, Brexit challenges, brand. I mean, I'm guessing that not everyone here knows who Unilever are, but you will know who our brands are. So brands like Ben & Jerry's, Walls, Magnum, Hellmann's Mayonnaise, Dove, the list goes on. And so kind of trying to translate that to the marketplace is something that's crucial to us. And so trying to go out to market advertising for Magnum rather than Unilever is one way we've tried to get around that. But just to say another challenge and maybe kind of bring something different up, I think we've been through such a challenging couple of years with COVID, working from home, hybrid, Great Resignation, all these other things that have listed. I think a big issue or a big opportunity for us is recruiter experience or talent acquisition partner experience. I think, particularly working for a large complex organisation, we sometimes over-engineer our processes. We sometimes look at trying to basically put too much administration and activity on the job, when really what we want to be doing is making sure that those people have the opportunity to go to market and do what makes, do what they are able to do to add value for the business.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one, and it is. I think in-house at the moment, you're being asked to do a lot more, potentially with a lot less. So your teams have shrunk, your budgets have shrunk. Not that our suppliers will be that happy about hearing that, but you are having to do a lot more with a lot less. Are there any areas where actually you're just, for our panelists, you go, we actually can't do that anymore? You're having to push back to the business and having that conversation.
I'll jump straight in on that one. So we are the epitome of having to do more with less at the minute. We are obviously a public funded company. And last year we completely restructured our talent function. And it was partly, driven by the changes we need to make and keeping up with the changes in talent. But of course, it was driven by headcount. So we have taken a massive headcount reduction. But recruitment for us does not slow up at all. So obviously you hear, of course, the BBC is shrinking and there are job losses. You do see that in the media. But there are job losses in certain areas so that we can grow in the right areas. So our volumes haven't shrunk. So do more with less. We haven't said we're not going to do this, but we've said, as a business, you're going to have to partner with us. So I hate to go back to branding straight away, and it's not even my kind of specialist area. But so, for example, in branding, we've got a team for the entire employer brand space in the BBC. We've got a team of 4 people, and actually that's a newly created team as well. They've been operating for 8 months. So doing that for a company of 25,000 people is amazing. So we've actually tried to empower and upskill the managers and the leaders and actually all of the workforce by creating a branding toolkit, which gives people content, tools, templates to make actually going out there and supporting us for recruitment for their teams much more easy. So I think leveraging the business is the key to the doing more with less in the talent space, full stop.
I can definitely vouch for that. One of the key things that we did to change to really engage the business, exactly the same. We needed managers to take on more and do more because we were having to do more ourselves with less. So we worked with our directors, our exec team, and got recruitment built into the overall business delivery. So it was part of everybody's objectives. So recruitment became part of the manager's objectives. So when we went in and we were more business partnering then to say, well, we are your SMEs, this is what you should be doing and this is how you should be doing. It was then backed up from bottom up and then from top down as well. So that was essential for us.
Did you get a lot of pushback?
We did, yes. We did see those that were really engaged, wanted to do that and really helped advocate for us. But then there does still remain, there's a small population that do find that a challenge to go, no, your recruitment, you should do that. But it's about that holistic approach and working with the various different leaders over those individuals and really bringing them along. And I love working with those individuals because I love turning them around as well.
You like the success story? Excellent. It's a really big challenge that we find is a big question at a lot of our events is working with hiring managers, getting them to turn around. But ultimately, you guys are the experts. You have to be seen as the experts rather than, the transactional. Otherwise, talent isn't going to shift and move that dial. I think we've got a few questions on Slido that we can probably go to. Okay, I'll read them out for you, but I'll move over this way because I can't see myself. Okay, back to the office, which might have been, Mark, something that you'd picked up initially. Obviously, flexible working, and there's been a lot of conversations around that already today. People want flexibility. Push from employees to get people back into the office. Is that deterring candidates? What's your split of, obviously, hospitality? I know you have to Yeah.
They're not in an office, but
Yeah.
yeah, they've got to be in the pub.
Yeah, exactly. So, Mark, what's 'cause I know you work with different areas of the business as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, part of the areas that I look for are R&D, so people in the labs, they have to be in there. But we're quite fortunate within Unilever, we've got a hybrid approach. So essentially 40% of your time should be within the office. That should be when you're going in to collaborate, to work with your colleagues, to get to know your stakeholders. The remaining 60% of your time you can spend working from home. And so from that, it's gone down well. There is a little bit of a push from some candidates that they want complete remote. Unilever don't offer that and aren't willing to support that. But the way that our hybrid working principles have been rolled out has actually worked pretty well. And yeah, we've had a good response.
Have you seen the same, or are you getting pushbacks?
I'll go again. Sorry, it's a lot of me, this. So we're hybrid as well. Of course, some roles, journalists, etc., need to be out and about. But actually, I think we've seen amazing benefit in that flexibility. So we kind of say 2 to 3 days in the office. Again, with so many people, that varies massively. Some people want to be in the office 5 days because they need that for social connection, or maybe can't work at home for whatever reason. But actually, some people, it's a one-day situation because that works best for them. And what I think is great from a talent perspective is where we were demanding that people be in the office for a certain amount of time or 5 days a week, we really restricted who we could go out there and recruit. But actually now we're finding we can recruit talent from across the UK, across the world, within reason because of labour laws. But, you know, across the UK, we've really opened up that kind of talent pool, so to speak. And also from an accessibility perspective and a neurodiversity perspective, again, this creates so much more opportunity for individuals who find it harder to come into an office or come into a workspace, or individuals who might be neurodivergent and actually that workspace isn't what they, you know, want to work in 5 days a week because, you know, for the reason, you know, I'm not going to use generalistic reasons, but I'm sure, you know, you can all imagine. So I think we've got to really stop being fearful of people working from home and not, you know, giving people the respect to say you're not going to be productive. Trust people. And I think people will naturally find what's right for them. We're all very different. And I think there's huge benefit to being in an office and collaborating with your teams. And I think having totally remote all the time probably doesn't work. But actually there's huge benefits to kind of being a little bit risk averse and going with that approach.
And I think especially when it's being mandated from the top that you have to start coming back. I know a couple of companies that they're starting to mandate that you have to come into the office now, and it's, you know, it's a real challenge.
I think as well, sort of connected to that, but perhaps if you work in industries where home working is not an option, I think that COVID and, you know, people being out of work because they were on furlough or whatever, coming back, it has made it more of an issue if you are in an industry where you have to be based there. And I guess the other side of that is looking at flexible hours and, like, specifically for us, and I guess maybe in healthcare as well, things like 4-day working weeks instead of 5, and sort of shortening the days you're working so people have got more time with their families. And also things like split shifts, so people don't want to do that anymore where they go home for a couple of hours and then come back. It's looking at that benefit and what you can offer, but not necessarily home working. It's that flexibility for them.
Yeah, I can add to that. We definitely went through that. We had probably pre-COVID a really traditional approach to full-time. Everybody's got to be in the pharmacy 5 days a week. And actually it took a working group of getting operations together and saying, can we be more flexible? Because we were losing people to our competitors who were also then considering that flexibility. It did cause some discord, as you can probably appreciate, between support centre functions, your head offices, to those that were out in the field and in the bricks and mortar side. But we went through that and it did work. It did enable quite a bit of our retention, but also the attraction strategies as well.
And I think it's a trust item, isn't it? You know, when you've got your own team and different managers might have to manage different teams slightly differently. Excellent. We're going to move on to the next question. So obviously, because of the market at the moment, there are a number of organisations that are perhaps going through a recruitment freeze, for example. Has anyone had any experience of working within a recruitment freeze? If so, how did you keep your team motivated, and what were they ultimately doing if they weren't recruiting?
I can start, 'cause actually when I first joined Unilever, within about 3 months, we announced our the biggest reorganisation in the business. So there was quite a substantial period of time before we were ready to go with some of the recruitment activity. And for us, again, taking the approach that we're not just talent acquisition, so much that we do within the business can relate to adding value in other areas, whether that's setting up things like ED&I strategies, whether that's looking at our overall recruitment process. It was seeing where we can add value in different areas. Part of that would then pipelining for the roles that we knew we were going to come, that we, to make sure that we're getting advantage there. But there's so many other areas that talent touches that we can influence, and that's where we spent that's basically where we spent our time when we were ready to go.
Unfortunately, we haven't had recruitment freezes. Ours has been really a candidate supply issue, so we've always been recruiting within pharmacy. Sorry.
It's okay, sorry.
I mean, how many people actually get time on their day-to-day when they are recruiting to do anything sort of value add and actually sit and look at sort of data or look at strategies? Does anyone get time to do that? 1, 2 people. There you go. So take the time, if you have got a recruitment freeze, set up those strategies and work through them. Another question that we've had come through is, what tactical initiative have you implemented that's had the biggest impact on candidate attraction?
For us, it will definitely be digital attraction. So, as I say, we've gone through a real transformation. That kind of post and pray methodology, I think, is pretty extinct nowadays. And I guess it just comes back to data again. But we are so granular in our analysis of where we spend every single penny and the processes we put candidates through, really. So we try and make sure every penny does have a return on investment. So we do lots and lots of things like pay-per-click campaigns across Instagram and Facebook. We work with a great digital attraction specialist who's kind of helped with the whole rebrand. But I think you have to go back to basics with it, and I think you can really overcomplicate it. But for me, it's kind of doing a bit of an audit of what do you do now, what do you do well, keep that, and what do you need to develop, and then breaking that down into kind of little sections to make them achievable throughout your sort of year-long strategy. But yeah, digital attraction and being really mindful that your information is in so many different places and it's so competitive that you've got to put your best foot forward wherever you're seen, be it your free Indeed company profile, LinkedIn, but also those things that you're actually paying for, like pay-per-click campaigns, and making sure they land, and not just then spending the money and that's it. It's then going back and analysing it. Well, did it work? Didn't it work? Why didn't it work? And things like, for social media, for example, for us, when we first started, we just did posts of static imagery, and some worked, some didn't, and we realised actually people now want more engagement on Reels and things like that, so we moved the budget, and the next thing we tried was doing pay-per-click campaigns specifically around Reels, looking at different geographical locations, the time of day you post it, but really getting into kind of the granular detail of how you spend money.
What social platform works best for you within hospitality?
I would say Instagram and Reels, and that's our next phase now. So we've just done a big project on an awareness campaign. So I don't know if you guys would have heard of Brunning and Price. We've got a pub not too far from here, the Wharf, but a lot of our pubs are known as individuals. So customers and also prospective candidates don't necessarily know us as Brunning and Price. So we're doing a big awareness campaign on us as a brand, specifically in the South, and that will go out on a reel to different groups and highlighting different pubs, things like that.
Does that mean we're all invited to the Wharf later?
Come, sure.
There you go. Drinks on you, Katie. Excellent. Any other tactics or initiatives that people have worked on recently? Yeah.
So it's in alignment, actually. We're doing quite a bit similar. But one of the key things that we introduced into our team, which we're super proud of, is a social channel and candidate marketeer that really made a difference over how we were attracting, because it enabled us to go out and stand out differently. So the talent pool that we pull from is quite unique. It's small. They all move between each competitors. So it wasn't just about an advert or different campaigns. They know who we are from that perspective. So we wanted to stand out with our culture and doing that through the social channels. Now, for us, LinkedIn is the main one, but the emerging talent that's coming through is Instagram, TikTok. So we're expanding more into that, which is new ground. It's different for the population that we work with.
Yeah, I've got an example, and maybe it links into another topic that I'm sure will come up related to diversity, inclusion, and equity. Last year, within our marketing functions, we hosted a number of specific events focused on attracting diverse talent, particularly in underrepresented areas within our marketing functions. Through holding a series of those events and looking at talent that wasn't necessarily applying, that wasn't necessarily fitting the criteria for the roles, broadening in exactly what we were looking for, but allowing that talent to go and meet our hiring managers, influence, bring out the best side of themselves in front of those in front of those people, really allowed us to kind of change some of the nature of the hiring that we were doing. And through those events, I think we ended up hiring about 40% of the people that came in. We're not talking major numbers here. We're probably talking, I think it was 5 or 6 people in total. But we ended up hiring 40%, and then a number of those other people that had met but maybe weren't suitable for them have then ended up on pipelines and subsequently hired as well. So again, that was set up. We work with a number of ED&I partners. We've got about 20 or so that we've set up in the UK. I can absolutely, if you grab me when I'm walking around, I'll shout to the rooftops about a couple. One particularly, Even Break, which support people with disabilities. And yeah, through the campaigns and through the support of those partners, we were really able to bring some diverse talent into our marketing groups.
And it's really interesting you said about opening up the skills that you're looking for to broaden it out. And I think, a lot of people, and you're probably getting it from hiring managers, they need to have 10 years experience in a role that's only been existing for 5 years and, it's impossible, etc. So actually broadening that out is always quite a key one. We're then going to move on to the question around diversity as well. So diversity initiatives, obviously a huge part. Personally, we've been at a number of events and we are seeing that it's moving down in the importance at the moment. I think maybe because just talent attraction, just trying to get people into the jobs is so hard right now. Is diversity still a big focus? Are you doing anything specific around diversity? Any success stories that you'd like to share?
Can I use my answer from the last question?
Yeah, there you go. So.
And look, I will let someone else answer. Sorry, but I don't think diversity is becoming less important. I think it's becoming more ingrained in what we do, and I think that can only be a good thing. I think there's been a big shift change away from maybe initially it being focused on gender, moving to ethnicity, and now other pillars such as people with disabilities, LGBTQ. But yeah, I don't think it's diminishing. I just think it's becoming part of the framework that we work to on a day-to-day basis.
That's really good to hear. Yeah,
and you stole my first sentence there. That's exactly it. I think we've really evolved as talent professionals and understand that everything we touch, every part of our process, diversity is not a tokenistic operational, something we're doing on the side. It's got to run through every single decision we make. And I think the fact that I don't think we're talking about it less, but I'm going to say we're talking about it less for the purpose of the question, is the fact that it's a given. But actually, we shouldn't take our foot off the pedal because I think more than ever we've got to kind of up our game. And kind of touching on what you said a little bit there as well, I think the BBC and other organisations I've worked in, sometimes I think when diversity really started, and it took too long to be at the forefront of what we were thinking about and realising it was important to have a diverse workforce, we kind of then went, we need to focus on gender, we need to focus on Black, Asian, minority, ethnic. And suddenly every year it would be a new focus on a different protected characteristic. And I think where we've developed is realising, that intersectionality is a thing, but also we can't just do one thing at a time. And it's not about, we've just got to improve this number over here, then we'll work on this number over here. It's about truly embodying inclusivity in everything that you do, both in the process of applying for a job, but actually once you get in the door. And that's another thing as well. Our figures are amazing in terms of who we're recruiting, but actually if we're not working in conjunction with the business and HR, and they're not working with us to make sure we're inclusive, the same percentages are walking out the door to go to the other. And it's not necessarily anything we're doing wrong although I think everyone's got to push to be more inclusive, it's the fact that every other company is going to make those people feel special unless we keep that experience up there throughout the whole life cycle of employment. So I think and I've not answered the question in terms of strategies, but from an attraction perspective, we're trying to work out there with the communities. We're trying to work with the organisations that are out there looking for jobs with people who are socially and economic diversity. All of the different protected characteristics. Utilise what's out there. There are so many organisations doing half the work for us. So I think from an attraction perspective, that's been really vital to us. From a branding perspective, just being really honest about what it's like to be inside the BBC and really reflecting that. From my side of things, in assessment and selection, basically ripping it up and starting again and looking at everything and going, is this really inclusive? What assumptions have we made previously? How do we upskill managers? How do we make ourselves more aware as a business around neurodivergent candidates? It's a huge area for me at the moment. So I think it's still important, but we've just really raised the bar in terms of what diversity means to us in talent.
It's good to hear.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And as you've mentioned there, we can do everything to make sure that the recruitment journey is absolutely spot on, it's inclusive. But you do need to work very closely with your people team and your business and making sure that they're also adopting and can put that into the whole life cycle journey, because as you've mentioned there, they'll move on and go elsewhere. So part of some of the initiatives that we've done, we've created an ED&I working group. Abby on my team represents recruitment, and that is looking at all approaches and awareness raising within the business and making sure that managers have the skills to be able to look at each of those different categorizations and what would they do, and that they can come to us and ask during recruitment, how best do I approach this?
Excellent. I haven't asked anyone if they want to do a hands up question. No, is everyone happy using Slido? Yeah? Okay, we'll carry on. Okay, excellent. So the next one we're going to go on to is around salary expectations. So I'm sure if anyone's been in any of the presentations this morning or this afternoon around what's going on in the market, the state of the market, candidates obviously are moving for salaries. It's cost of living crisis, people need increased salaries. How are you navigating the ever continuing salary expectation increases in the market for incoming candidates? Are you counter offering? Are you just, we obviously just had a session around boomerangs, but if they're moving...
So I guess salary for us, I mean, it's really difficult because, it's well known, especially in kind of waiter, waitressing type roles, it is virtually minimum wage. But I think it's, for us, not just about money. And I know there's been lots of sessions about other things, but a lot of it is around benefits as well, and that balance of different things that are important, things like free meals when they're working on shift to help with cost of living crisis, that actually adds quite a lot of value. Trying to look in, can't remember the name of the company, but one that I'm definitely going to follow up today was helping employees with travel costs, because
Ride Tandem.
Yes, so Ride Tandem, a lot of our candidates, their barrier to working for is actually not the money. It's not that they don't want to, but they don't have transport to get to the places. So that looks like a great option for us to be able to...
Or there's a train strike or something.
Train strike, the buses didn't turn up, whatever it is. But yeah, I think and we talked a little bit about this before, I think partnering with the business and providing them with information of what your competitors are doing, what is a fair salary in the marketplace, and constantly being mindful of that and ensuring you are competitive is really important. And if we are sort of behind the curve and we're not paying what we should be, it's challenging the business and sort of providing them with data to create informed decisions around that, really. But yeah, I think it's just making sure that what you're advertising and the different messages you're putting out there, whether it's in a job advert or in your video content, it's kind of selling your workplace as it's somewhere great to work, and it's not just about the money.
Excellent.
What Katie said.
There you go. Are you getting a lot of people leaving because of salaries, or is it you are?
We do, yeah. And look, Unilever's got a reputation as a great company to work for. We've got great Glassdoor rankings. Our CEO's well respected. We've got a fantastic place, and that helps a lot. And I think, again, it's then making sure that when we have people that are key talent that we want to retain, that we're giving them the platform to develop. And that comes back to the holistic approach that we try and take, which is having things like development people forums where we talk about our talent, we make sure that they know that they're on, development scope for promotions, for development, because we can't just throw money at people, and people will depart for that reason. I think we've got to accept that, but as long as we can make sure that the time in the business is a good one, it can help develop our alumni networks to bring them back into the business in the future when maybe the time allows.
Yeah, I think you're right. Training and development is a massive one. I think there's kind of two arms to it. It's your compensation and package for attracting people that don't currently work for your business, but also offer enough different things for your existing employees that they don't look elsewhere, because there's always going to be someone else paying more money. But and I know there's probably a fancy word for it, but yes, we did lose people when we opened back after COVID, especially some kind of really high branded competitors of ours, but actually they went and they got paid loads of money and they were like, this is actually a bit rubbish, and came back. And I don't think it's all about the money, it's everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Go on.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The salary has been a big issue for us within the healthcare industry, but it has been around the whole package. And you referenced an alumni scheme. We're very early days in that, but quite often we've found that people have decided to leave, realise the grass isn't greener, it's not worth the additional salary, and have returned. And it's all about making sure that you stay in touch with those individuals, that they feel that they can open that conversation back up. And it's amazing how many people do return within the first year.
If you didn't catch David Brammer's session on boomerang hires, we'll have the recording for you in a couple of weeks, which is exactly what they're talking about there. So brilliant session. Really quick, yes or no, we're going to go for. Salaries on adverts, yes or no?
Yes.
100% yes.
Yes? As in you do have salaries on all your adverts?
Always.
Okay. You would want to, but you're not allowed to?
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Show of hands? Go on.
Sorry, I'm going to jump in quickly. There is legislation coming, though, meaning that is going to become much more prevalent and required,
Yeah.
which I welcome. I think it's really important. But
Yeah, absolutely.
really been snatched up.
Go on, if you've got a comment or a question.
Hello. So I was just going to ask, is that because the business doesn't want to, because of internal politics that will create, or is that because of other reasons? Like, what do you typically tend to find the reason is for them not advertising?
So I think there are certain roles that we do. I think, Wes, I'm right in saying factory-wise, we advertise because it's, if you join our factories, you have a shift amount, you've got a salary, it's no negotiation, it is what it is. But I think, the reason why we don't in the wider scheme is because of the discussions with the reward team that, what would that do if we went out there? And I think there's a little bit of a risk there, but equally, I think with what Tania's saying about the opportunity for that coming in legislation, and just all the data that you see about why it should be important, it would be something that I would go for, but equally, I've got to be mindful about what I say, to be honest. So I'll stop there and cut myself
It's being
off.
recorded. Quick show of hands in the audience. Do you advertise all salaries? Hands up. Okay, it's quite a fair whack of it. So, okay, interesting. That was a slightly longer, quick yes/no response. So, really good one. So, building and growing your own talent teams. And Mark, I know this is something that you also touched on as well. What advice would you give to someone in the audience that's perhaps new to a leadership role or new to managing a talent team and growing and develop them? Because it's a bit of a struggle. I know I joked before, but obviously you go agency, you go RPO, you go in-house, then where do you go? How do you develop your own team?
So in our team, I guess we've had quite a lot of change. So I had 3 new recruiters on the same day in January last year, which actually was useful for induction. But I think initially it's about bedding everyone in and getting them to understand the company and what good looks like for you and your process and that sort of thing. But we're in a really nice place now where end of last summer, we all sat down together as a team and came up with our recruitment strategy for the next 12 months. Everyone had input, and between the team, they divvied up kind of what the projects were going to be. Because I think, I shouldn't say this as a recruiter, but I think day in, day out, just looking at CVs can get a little bit monotonous. And for me, certainly, but also I think my team, having that engagement with your role is about doing other things as well. So different schemes and things like apprenticeships and liaising with colleges, working with prisons, the digital side of things, social media, but I guess enabling your recruiters to own projects that are UK-wide, so and also get exposure to different arms of the business as well.
Yeah, and the only other thing I would add to that as well is let the people that you're growing be themselves as well. You don't just want to recruit people in your own image and who do talent the way that you do talent. You know, you're the best version of you, but equally, you don't want to create a little clone. You want the person to own themselves. And if you let them and give them the freedom to really challenge themselves, I'm sure that you'll then complement each other in terms of skills and experience, and you'll actually be able to bring something else to the business as well.
I'll add a quick add-on. So depending on what kind of stage you are in building a team and whether that's new joiners and that's their beginning of their careers or whether they're further on in their careers, I think what's always been really important for me as a leader is not to assume that I know everything and I can't learn from the team, and that the team can't learn from each other. So I've always, rather than always leading the team meetings and always leading the development sessions, is really put it out there to the team and say, where are our gaps? Who wants to talk about that? Who wants to upskill the team? Because it doesn't always have to be me. And I'm learning from them as well at the same time. And I think that helps with retention. It helps with engagement. There's not just one voice in the room all the time. And I think we underestimate how powerful that can be.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly, and making sure that everybody within the team feels that they can share their opinion and challenge you. And that does make such a difference in the kind of decisions that you make, because not everybody's going to agree. But if everybody gets a chance to put forward their opinions, then at least they all understand the direction that you go with them.
Excellent. We are nearing the end of the time that we have, and I told you 45 minutes would fly by. Before we get to the final question, Katie, what was the name of the pub around the corner again? It's got the most likes, so I feel rude to not ask.
The Wharf.
The Wharf is in Salford or
Castlefield, yeah, I don't.
Castlefield. There you go.
That way.
The Wharf in Castlefield. See you all there later. So what I'd like to ask actually is for everyone in the audience here, what would be your one bit of advice? What would be your biggest learning? Not necessarily in your current role, but throughout your career. And actually, we had a question on a panel recently. What was the biggest mistake you've made in your career that you've learned from? So kind of something along those lines. But, you know, what would be your top advice for everyone sitting in this room here now?
My most recent experience of really moving to actually having a strategy. I know, lots of functions work very transactionally and it's just day to day and you're just hanging on. But actually, when you come to the point of writing a strategy, is really owning that process and, talk to lots of providers, talk to lots of companies, even chatting to these guys just before the stage, we're going to pick up on various different things that work in different organizations, but really analyzing what you do, why you do it, and what's that return on investment. And also, I think not being kind of blind to what's going on in the market. I think that there's loads of lovely tech companies here that maybe work or don't work for your organization, but just being mindful of different things that are out there, but still staying true to yourself and your company's values, and it's not always going to work.
Pinched half of my answer there. It's a really good answer. To build on that, I would say always be honest. Don't ever fluff anything up. Always go in and be honest, because that way you're only going to build your credibility as being that recruitment expert with your business. So go in, know what you know your industry as mentioned, and always be credible in what you're doing.
I would say the key thing from the whole career is just don't try and do too much too quickly. Get the basics right, get the foundation right, know what your brand is as a talent team. And but I think in every company organisation that can look very different. Make sure that your team know what their brand is and what your common goals are, and really strive for excellence. Set excellence in that team and let everyone have ownership of what excellence is. Do the good stuff, do what tech are we going to have? Let's make our branding the best, but get that service excellent right first. That will help you take the business on a journey.
And I think for me, just don't be afraid of making mistakes. You know, whether it's trying a new recruitment tool, whether it's trying some technology, you know, just doing something in a different way. If you're not making mistakes, you're not innovating. And if you're not innovating, you're not going to be pushing things forward. And, you know, I'm surprised ChatGPT hasn't come up.
I know. I really thought it was. We prepped for it for ages and it hasn't. So we can talk about that later.
I know we're all terrified of it, apparently, but equally, the world is going to change. What recruitment looks like now and what talent looks like now isn't the same as what it looked like 10 years ago. So be someone that's trying and pushing yourself forward, and don't be afraid that some of those things won't work.
What a lovely way to end the session. Has anyone got any final questions or comments that they'd like to just really quickly ask? No? That was brilliant. Thank you so much for your insights. Hopefully everyone got something from that, enjoyed the session, enjoyed the collaboration and speaking with peers as well. So hope you all enjoyed it. A massive round of applause to our lovely panellists.